April 16th, 1945. Okinawa. The destroyer, USS Laffey, had been at her battle station for 79 minutes when the first kamikaze dove out of the clouds. Then, another. And another. For the next 80 minutes, 22 kamikaze aircraft and 3 bombs would hit this single ship. Her crew would fight through fires, explosions, flooding compartments, and bodies piled on the deck. When the smoke finally cleared, Laffey was still afloat, still fighting, still refusing to die. This is the story of the most attacked ship in naval history that somehow survived. The USS Laffey was a Fletcher-class destroyer, commissioned in February 1944, 376 feet long, displacing 2,300 tons, armed with 5-inch guns and 40mm anti-aircraft weapons. She was named after Seaman Bartlett Laffey, who had been killed during the Civil War. The ship had already seen action at Normandy on D-Day, where she provided gunfire support for the landings. But nothing in her history prepared her crew for what was about to happen off the coast of Okinawa. By April 1945, the battle for Okinawa was in full swing. This island, just 350 miles from mainland Japan, was the last stepping stone before an invasion of Japan itself. The Japanese knew it. They threw everything they had at the American invasion fleet, including a terrifying new weapon that had emerged in late 1944, Kamikaze, the divine wind. Pilots who deliberately crashed their aircraft into American ships, turning themselves into guided missiles. It was a tactic born of desperation, but it was devastatingly effective. Laffey had been assigned to Radar Picket Station No. 1, 30 miles north of Okinawa. Her job was to serve as an early warning outpost, detecting incoming Japanese aircraft and directing American fighters to intercept them. It was one of the most dangerous assignments in the Pacific. Radar picket ships were isolated, exposed, and inevitably the first targets the kamikazes encountered. 16 radar picket destroyers had already been sunk or damaged by mid-April. The sailors called these positions Coffin Corner. Commander Frederick Beckton, Laffey's captain, knew exactly what he was getting into. The morning of April 16th started quietly, too quietly. Laffey was on station with 2 landing craft support ships for backup. The crew had been at general quarters, battle stations, since before dawn. By 7:30 a.m., they were exhausted, nerves frayed from scanning empty skies. Then, the combat air patrol overhead reported bandits inbound, lots of them. At exactly 8:27 a.m., a Japanese aircraft appeared from the clouds. It was a Naval dive bomber, diving straight at Laffey from the port side. The ship's 5-inch guns opened fire. 40mm mounts joined in. The Naval disintegrated under the hail of fire and splashed into the ocean just 50 yards from the ship. The crew barely had time to cheer before the second plane attacked. This one came from starboard, another Naval. The gunners tracked it, fired, hit it. The plane's wing tore off, and it cartwheeled into the sea. 2 down. The crew's confidence surged. Their gunnery training was paying off. They could handle this. Then they looked up and saw what was really coming. The sky was full of aircraft. Japanese fighters, dive bombers, torpedo planes. Dozens of them, all heading straight for Laffey. This wasn't a raid. This was a concentrated assault designed to obliterate the radar picket ships. The Battle of Okinawa's largest kamikaze attack had just begun, and Laffey was the primary target. The third plane came in low, skimming the water. A Zero fighter. The 20mm guns on the fantail engaged, tracers reaching out. The Zero kept coming. It hit Laffey's stern, the aft 5-inch gun mount. The explosion killed everyone in the mount instantly and started fires that threatened the ammunition magazines below. Damage control teams rushed aft, dragging hoses, fighting flames. While they worked, the 4th kamikaze attacked from the bow. This one was hit by the forward guns and crashed into the ship just behind the bridge, its bomb exploding on impact. The blast killed the ship's doctor and several men on the bridge. Commander Beckton was wounded by shrapnel but refused to leave his post. 2 hits in less than 3 minutes. Fires burning fore and aft. men dead or wounded. Any normal ship would have been in serious trouble. But Laffey's damage control training was about to prove its worth. The crew had drilled endlessly for this. Every man knew his job. Fire teams attacked the flames with foam and water. Repair parties shored up damaged bulkheads. Medical corpsmen dragged wounded to shelter and began treating them. And through it all, the gunners never stopped firing. Because the kamikazes kept coming. Number 5 came from above. A dive bomber that the forward guns hit but couldn't stop. It crashed into the deck near the number 1 5-inch mount, its bomb penetrating below before exploding. The blast tore a massive hole in the ship's side at the waterline. Water poured into forward compartments. Laffey began listing to port. In the Combat Information Center below decks, radar operators watched in horror as the scope showed more and more targets converging on their position. 50 bogeys, 60, 70. The Combat Air Patrol was trying to intercept, but there were too many. Some were getting through. Kamikaze number 6 attacked from the stern. The aft gunners, working around the burning wreckage of their mount, engaged with whatever weapons still functioned. They hit the plane, but its momentum carried it into the ship's superstructure. The explosion showered the deck with burning aviation, gasoline, and shrapnel. Men caught in the open were killed instantly. Others were engulfed in flames and dove over the side into the ocean. Swimmers thrashed in the water around the ship, struggling to stay afloat in their heavy gear while battle raged overhead. Commander Becton, blood streaming from his wounds, continued commanding from the bridge. He ordered hard rudder turns, trying to dodge the incoming aircraft. Laffey heeled over in tight circles, maneuvering like a destroyer half her size. The helmsman, Seaman Robert Dockery, spun the wheel frantically, following Becton's orders instantly. Every turn meant the difference between a kamikaze hitting dead center or glancing off. Every degree mattered. Dockery would later receive the Bronze Star for his skill that day. He kept Laffey dancing through the attacks even as bombs exploded around him and the bridge filled with smoke. Kamikazes 7 and 8 attacked simultaneously from different directions. The gunners had to choose which to engage. They concentrated on the closer threat, a Val approaching from starboard. They shot it down, but the second plane, a 0 from port, struck the ship amidships. Its engine tore through the deck and lodged in the compartments below. Fuel ignited, another fire, another hole. Water continued flooding in. Laffey's list increased. Engineering crews opened valves to counter-flood the starboard side, trying to keep the ship level. If she capsized, everyone would die. The 9th Kamikaze, a Judy dive bomber, came almost vertically down from 9,000 feet. Anti-aircraft fire from every gun on the ship reached up toward it. Tracers formed a cone of death. The Judy flew straight through it, absorbing dozens of hits. Pieces flew off, smoke trailed, but it kept coming. It struck the ship's number 3 5-inch mount, obliterating the gun crew. The bomb detonated inside the mount, turning it into a metal tomb. 16 men died in that explosion. Their bodies would remain sealed in the mount, entombed in the wreckage. By now, Laffey looked like a floating scrapyard. Her decks were cratered and torn. Fires burned from bow to stern. Dead and wounded lay everywhere. The ship was down by the bow from flooding and listing heavily. Her radio antenna had been shot away, cutting off communications. Some of her gun mounts were destroyed, others damaged. Ammunition was running low. The Combat Air Patrol was running out of fuel and had to return to their carriers. Fresh fighters were on the way, but there would be a gap. Laffey would be alone for the next few minutes, and the kamikazes were still coming. Number 10 attacked the bridge, trying to kill the command staff. The 20mm gunners engaged point blank, their weapons almost touching the incoming aircraft. They hit it repeatedly, but it still crashed into the ship just below the bridge. The explosion blew bodies into the air and collapsed part of the bridge structure. Commander Becton was thrown against a bulkhead but somehow remained conscious. He pulled himself upright and kept giving orders. As long as he was alive, Laffey would keep fighting. Kamikaze 11 targeted the already damaged stern. The aft gun crews were working with weapons that were partially destroyed, firing manually because the power systems had failed. They hit the incoming plane, setting it on fire. The pilot, probably already dead, stayed on course. The burning aircraft struck the ship's fantail and skidded across the deck, spreading flames. Sailors scattered, some jumping overboard to escape the inferno. The engineering spaces below the hit were flooded to prevent magazine explosions. Laffey's stern was now completely submerged. The ship's propellers were visible above water as the bow lifted. Then came the bombs. 3 Japanese planes, too damaged to continue kamikaze runs or possibly just out of position, dropped their bombs from altitude. The first missed, exploding in the water close enough to buckle hull plates. The second hit amidships, punching through the deck and detonating in crew quarters. The third hit the already devastated stern, causing more flooding. Each explosion sent shockwaves through the ship. Loose equipment flew around compartments. Men were thrown off their feet. Lighting failed. In the darkness below decks, damage control parties worked by flashlight, struggling to contain flooding and fires simultaneously. Kamikazes 12, 13, and 14 came in rapid succession. The remaining gun crews, now working weapons that were hand-loaded because ammunition hoists had failed, fought with desperate determination. They shot down one plane at 300 yards, a second at 200 yards, the third at 75 yards, so close that wreckage from the disintegrating aircraft peppered the ship, wounding more men. The sky was filled with smoke and debris. Spent shell casings covered the deck. The smell of cordite, burning fuel, and death was overwhelming. By 9:30 a.m., Laffey had been under continuous attack for over an hour. 15 kamikaze hits or near misses, 3 bombs, fires everywhere, flooding in multiple compartments. 31 men dead, 72 wounded. The ship was a wreck. She should have sunk. Engineering Officer Lieutenant Frank Manson reported to the bridge that the engines were still running, but steering was questionable and they were taking on water faster than pumps could handle. Commander Becton made a decision. They would not abandon ship. They would keep fighting. If Laffey was going to sink, she would sink with her guns firing. The 16th, 17th, and 18th attacks came from different directions simultaneously. The remaining gun crews divided their fire. They couldn't stop all of them. 2 hit. One exploded against the ship's side. Another crashed into the already destroyed aft section. Each hit, each explosion, each fire seemed like it would be the one that finally killed Laffey. But somehow, impossibly, the ship stayed afloat. Her hull, though torn and battered, remained intact enough to keep her from capsizing. Her engineering spaces, though flooded, kept enough buoyancy to prevent sinking, and her crew refused to give up. The 19th, 20th, and 21st kamikazes arrived just before 9:45 a.m. By now, American fighter aircraft had finally arrived in force. Marine Corps Corsairs dove into the remaining Japanese planes, shooting them down before they could reach Laffey, but 3 got through. The exhausted gunners engaged, their weapons almost too hot to touch from continuous firing. They shot down 2. The third, trailing smoke and flame, still managed to crash into the ship's port side. It was the 22nd and final hit. The explosion was almost anticlimactic. Just one more blast among dozens. One more fire among many. One more reason Laffey should sink, but she didn't. At 9:47 a.m., the last Japanese aircraft retreated. The sky cleared. The guns fell silent. For the first time in 80 minutes, no one was shooting at USS Laffey. Commander Becton surveyed his ship. Fires burned from stem to stern. The deck was covered with wreckage, blood, and bodies. 2 gun mounts were completely destroyed. 3 others were damaged. The ship listed 15 degrees and was down by the stern. But the engines still ran. The hull, though pierced by shrapnel and bombs, held. And most importantly, his crew was still fighting. They were fighting fires, fighting flooding, fighting to save their ship. Over the next few hours, the crew worked miracles. They extinguished fires that should have consumed the ship. They patched holes that should have sunk her. They restored power to critical systems. They treated wounded in blood-slicked passages. And slowly, incredibly, Laffey stabilized. By afternoon, the flooding was under control. By evening, the fires were out. The ship was damaged beyond anything in her design specifications, but she was afloat and under her own power. Tugs and support vessels arrived to escort her to the anchorage at Karamaretto. Laffey limped into the harbor under her own steam, her crew standing at attention despite their exhaustion and wounds. Other ships in the harbor sounded their sirens in salute. This battered, smoking wreck had survived the unsurvivable. The final accounting was sobering. 31 dead, 72 wounded out of a crew of 336. Nearly one-third casualties. 22 kamikaze aircraft had attacked the ship. 6 scored direct hits. 4 near misses caused significant damage. 3 bombs struck her. Any one of those hits could have sunk her. Together, they should have obliterated her, but USS Laffey survived. Damage assessment teams who inspected the ship were amazed. One officer commented that Laffey should be on the bottom. Another said she had more lives than a cat. The crew had a simpler explanation. They had refused to die. Commander Becton received the Navy Cross for his leadership during the battle. His citation noted that he remained in command despite wounds and refused evacuation until his ship was safe. Lieutenant Manson received the Navy Cross for keeping the engines running while standing in waist-deep water in flooded engineering spaces. Dozens of crew members received Silver Stars, Bronze Stars, and Purple Hearts. But perhaps the greatest honor came from the ship herself being saved. Laffey was repaired, returned to service, and survived the war. She was eventually decommissioned in 1947 but would be recommissioned for the Korean War. Today, she sits as a museum ship in Charleston, South Carolina, her battle damage carefully preserved, a testament to the day she refused to die. The battle off Okinawa on April 16, 1945, represented everything about the Pacific War in microcosm. Japanese desperation turned into weapon. American industrial might building ships tough enough to absorb punishment, and young men on both sides willing to die for their countries. The kamikazes who attacked Laffey showed extraordinary courage, flying to certain death. But the crew who defended her showed equal courage, standing their posts as their ship exploded around them. Both sides fought with honor. Both sides suffered. USS Laffey's survival became legendary in the Navy. She proved that American destroyers could take incredible punishment and survive if their crews were well-trained and determined. The lessons learned from Laffey's battle influenced damage control training for decades. Her story was studied at the Naval Academy. Her example inspired countless sailors. And her nickname, earned that day, stuck forever. The ship that would not die. 80 minutes of hell. 22 kamikaze aircraft. 6 direct hits. 3 bomb strikes. 1 destroyer that refused to sink. This is the story of USS Laffey, the most attacked ship in naval history that somehow, impossibly, survived. Her crew's courage, their training, their determination, turned certain death into miraculous survival. They proved that ships are made of steel, but crews are made of something stronger. They are made of will. And on April 16, 1945, the will of USS Laffey's crew proved unbreakable.